I really do fear that as things are, we are on course for what one can call, in shorthand, Holocaust 2, by which I mean another great turning against the Jews. I don't mean gas ovens and all that, I mean another great turning. And I know that there are a number of really eminent Jews who would endorse what I'm about to say. If the monster of anti-Semitism goes on the rampage again, it may well start its journey in America. Now, over the years, I've been to America a great many times, as you know, and I've had conversations with very many congressmen, senators, and members of the lower house, private conversations. And I know that many of them hate themselves for being tools of the Zionist lobby. Now, I can despise them for being that, you can despise them for being that, but that's the way the American system is. Well, the point is, if the day ever comes when they can break free from this power, it's almost blackmail, if they will want their revenge. So I think, yes, there is a real... But you see, this is the danger of telling the truth of history. If you tell it without sensitivity and without understanding in depth, you're almost inviting anti-Semitism, because you're saying to the world, look, these bloody Zionists, they've been lying and lying and lying, and they committed these crimes. That's why I say it is so important to understand the difference between Judaism and Zionism, and why it's wrong to blame all Jews.
In terms of the citizens of nations and why they should be informed as to the whole truth of history,
governments, including and especially the government in Washington, D.C., our government, they are never, ever going to use the leverage they have to call and hold the Zionist state of Israel to account for its crimes, unless and until they are pushed to do so by informed public opinion, by, we can say, by manifestations of real democracy in action. The problem throughout the Western world, and in America especially, is that most citizens are too uninformed to do the pushing. So that's why I believe that the truth of history is the fundamental, it's the liberator. It's what can make democracy work for justice and peace in the Middle East.
But you truly believe that if the Americans were made aware and knew the truth of history, that they would insist upon a change of policy in the Middle East?
I do that, and I know America very well. I think, for example, that if long ago Americans had been informed of the cause and effect relationship of Israeli occupation to Palestinian violence, I think they would have demanded an end to Israel's occupation long ago. But let me tell you this, and viewers, I have a love-hate relationship with America. On the one hand, and generally speaking, I think that Americans are the dimmest, dumbest, most underinformed people on earth. Now, I've said this on public platforms in America, so I can say it here. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that deep down, Americans are the most idealistic people on earth. If they could be properly informed and well led, I think they not only could, but would turn around their own nation and change it so that it become what we all need it to be, the leader to change the world and make a more just and better world. Now, there are people who say to me, Alan, you're extremely naive for thinking that about Americans, but I have been to America a lot. I know Americans. I've lectured and debated there. I think I'm right to have that faith in the essential idealism of Americans.
I think what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that you believe that there could be a real peace and a basis of justice for the Palestinians?
My jury is out on that. I mean, I think the situation at this moment fills me with gloom. I mean, now is not the time to go, because I'll be exploring this with my guests in the coming series. No, all I'm saying is that I think if the citizens of the Western world, and Americans in particular, could be informed of the truth of history, I think pressure would generate for their governments to use the leverage they have to be serious about peace, which has to be based on justice for the Palestinians. But I think we have to mobilize people power to make democracy work.
And I know that you describe the mainstream Western media, the TV, the radio and the newspapers, as being complicit in Zionism's suppression of the truth of history. I think this is your way of saying the Jews control the media.
No, Chris, that's not what I'm saying. And I have fights with every Arab and every Muslim I hear saying the Jews control the media. Now, I know that's how it may look, but it simply is not the case. The problem is even worse than that. The problem throughout the Western world is self-censorship. The truth of the matter is that the media, the mainstream media, like politicians almost without exception, are terrified of offending Zionism. I'll give you just one or two examples. Newspapers don't make their money from selling newspapers. They make their money from selling advertising space. So what they fear if they offend Zionism is the pulling of the advertising plugs. Now you can say to me, but the BBC is not commercially driven. No, it isn't. But the BBC is terrified of offending Zionism. If for a programme, a news item or whatever, you offend Zionism, the BBC can get as many as 10,000 emails. Now that's a lot of hassle for busy working journalists, producers and whatever. But there's more to it as well.
The whole world knows that Bush has demonised Iran by branding it as part of the axis of evil. My worry for you as my father, and it's for the first transmission for Press TV, which is for an Iranian network, is I am concerned, and are you not concerned, that because of your association with it, Iran's enemies, and the Zionists in particular, would accuse you of joining forces with the axis of evil?
Well, let me be very straight about this. I try to be with most things. First of all, so far as the mainstream Western media is concerned, I do not exist. My book does not exist. They just will have nothing to do with it because they don't upset Zionism. So, for starters, I have to take advantage of any opportunity I can to contribute towards informed and honest debate. So I have this opportunity with Press TV, which, as you say, is an Iranian network. But I also have to say I have total editorial control of this program. Nobody else, it's me. I decide who I want to interview, what questions I want to ask, and I have the commanding control, say, of the editing. There's my program. But there's another little thought I'd throw in. If you were to ask Arabs and Muslims, I suspect that most of them would say that the real axis of evil was the one that ran through Bush's Washington, Blair's London, and Tel Aviv.
Do you fear for your life?
I'll confine myself by saying that I am aware that I could be a target for assassination, and frankly, not only by Zionists and supporters of Israel, right or wrong.
For my indulgence,